Snake, try to remember some of the basics of CQC.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at 10 things to remember before Metal Gear Delta. Many people don't even realize original creator Hideo Kojima isn't at the helm of this highly anticipated release, and some are jumping into this series for the first time, so we're laying it all out for new fans and old. Possible spoilers ahead. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Not Solid Snake.
This is Snake. Colonel, can you hear me?
This is one for the new fans jumping into the game. It's impossible to be a gamer on this planet and not at least know the name Solid Snake. Everybody knows Solid Snake is the protagonist of Metal Gear Solid, but gamers who've never touched the series may be surprised to learn that out of the 13 canonical Metal Gear games, he's only the protagonist in 4 of them. So after you're finished with Snake's adventure in Metal Gear Delta, and you inevitably want to move on to the original series but are struggling to understand how Snake stays so young between 1960 and 2005, it's because these two Snakes are not the same person, regardless of their identical voice and face. In MGS3, you play as a naked Snake over 10 years before Solid Snake was even born, but we'll let you learn how these characters connect in your own time. Metal Gear Solid. Jumping into Metal Gear Delta without playing any of the other games is totally possible for series first-timers. Chronologically, it comes before any other entry in the series, so although first-timers won't get any aha moments when meeting characters who series fans know will show up again in games set chronologically ahead, it will be an interesting experience all on its own. The main aha moment that may leave first-timers confused is why the hell is the game called Metal Gear Solid? Well, let me explain. A Metal Gear is a type of nuclear weapon-equipped tank that is also bipedal. Think a walking nuke machine. In MGS3, players don't actually encounter any Metal Gears, so they may be left scratching their heads about the title. The Solid part of the title was a transitional icon representing the game's move from 2D with Metal Gear 1 and 2 to 3D with Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The word Solid is taken from our main protagonist in Metal Gear 1, 2 and Metal Gear Solid, Solid Snake. Did that make sense? It barely did on this end.
What's your outfit?
I'm the pawn they sent here to save your worthless butt.
The best in the series. Whether they remade MGS1 or MGS3, either is a great way for first-time players of the series to dip their toe in the water and see if they like the game. Chronologically, MGS3 makes sense as it's the earliest in the series, whilst MGS1 would have been a good choice as the first MGS game to release. Ultimately, Konami decided on MGS3, which is a great choice as it is widely considered the best in the entire series. With the introduction of a bunch of interesting and cool new mechanics, a movable third-person camera with the Subsistence release, and a story that shows off one of the most infamous characters in the series, the game hit every beat it wanted to perfectly. That being said, if you find yourself not enjoying your time in Metal Gear Delta, you may have been given the best chance to learn that Metal Gear Solid isn't the series for you. MGS3 specific mechanics.
You've got to get those wounds treated. Hang in there.
Speaking of brand new mechanics, curious gamers playing the series for the first time with MGS Delta, assuming they're enjoying themselves, may be wondering how similar this game is to the previous 2 Metal Gear Solid games. They may want to jump back and try them, but are wondering how similar the games handle. Wonder no more, because although MGS3 feels like an MGS game, there are a lot of new mechanics, and we mean a lot, that were introduced for the first time in this entry. Combat was heavily improved with Snake using CQC, close quarters combat, to take down his opponents, whilst in the previous games, it was a far more archaic punch-punch-kick combo and choke button. The introduction of camouflage, although touched on ever so briefly in one section of MGS2, is totally new, giving the player a stealth percentage meter that raises and lowers depending on the camouflage you equip, and of course the places you hide. A movable third-person camera, stamina, eating, and curing yourself with a detailed medicine system are also totally new and very fun features added for just this entry.
Snake, try to remember some of the basics of CQC.
Big Boss was a villain.
I hereby award you the title of Big Boss.
Soft spoiler coming ahead, you have been warned. In Metal Gear 1 and 2, Solid Snake faced off against the evil antagonist, Big Boss, and even after killing him, he is still brought up in the following 2 entries, Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, as this almost godly figure to the villains you face.
You're pretty good. Just what I'd expect from the man with the same code as the boss.
Big Boss was the guiding beacon for every substantial antagonist when he wasn't simply the antagonist himself. In MGS3, players knew that they were jumping into the shoes of Big Boss before he became Big Boss, and were excited to see the world through the eyes of this villain. Surprisingly though, he doesn't come across as a villain at all. Will Naked Snake's journey to becoming Big Boss make us understand him more? Will it make us realize that he may not have been the villain this entire time? Or will it show us his downfall into villainy? You'll have to play to find out. Chronology. We won't waste too much time on this entry as we've touched on it already a fair bit, but it is worth drilling home that Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, and it is the earliest chronological entry in the series. The games were released as much as you'd expect from Metal Gear 1 and 2 to Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, with a Peace Walker or a Rising game thrown in for good measure. The chronology, however, reads like this. Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 5, Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain, Metal Gear 1, Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. There are re-releases of some games with slightly different titles like Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance and Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, but these games never changed the main campaign. They just added some fun extra content. Similar themes. We've talked about what's different. Well then, what exactly is the same in Metal Gear Solid 3 when comparing it to Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2? Funnily enough, Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3 share very similar themes, almost to the point where players can predict the story outcomes by looking at the previous entries. All feature a protagonist on a solo sneaking infiltration mission. All feature the protagonist being caught and tortured. All feature a love interest with complications. All feature a main villain with a team of supernatural/enhanced sidekicks. And all feature a mechanized nuclear threat. Also, cardboard boxes. This is only scratching the surface, but I guess you'll just have to play MGS 1 and 2. Original audio.
Wait!
What?
Listen to me, you fool. I want to help you.
Help me?
To thank you for your compliment.
What compliment?
My shoes. Tatiana gave them to me. I wanted to thank you for complimenting me on them.
David Hayter is somewhat infamous as a voice actor for playing the roles of both Solid Snake in MGS 1, 2, and 4, and Naked Snake in MGS 3. The touchy relationship between Hayter and the original game creator Hideo Kojima is well documented, with Kojima seeming indifferent to Hayter, and even trying to push him out of MGS 3 to replace him with Kurt Russell. Kojima eventually succeeded by replacing Hayter in MGS 5 with Kiefer Sutherland, and since then Hayter has let his feelings be more open about being pushed out of the series he's essentially the face of, or rather the voice of. With all this being said, and with Kojima no longer being a part of Konami, the developer and publisher in charge of MGS Delta, we've been wondering, will Hayter return to voice Naked Snake? Or will they re-record with Kiefer Sutherland continuing to play the character? As of June 2023, Konami has confirmed that they will be using the original voices and original audio from MGS3 for this remake, which confirms that not only will we hear David Hayter again, but we'll also get an unchanged storyline. Revolver Ocelot. One of the primary antagonists in Metal Gear Solid 3 is a young Russian colonel by the name of Revolver Ocelot, and players will find themselves fixated on this character and his high energy and dedication to taking down Snake. It's worth having the knowledge that for players who'd been playing the series since Metal Gear Solid 1, Revolver Ocelot was not a new face. First appearing in Metal Gear Solid 1 and going on to be a substantial antagonist in Metal Gear Solid 2, he is a series regular that made fans gasp when he appeared in this game set 40 years before we'd last seen him. Keep an eye on this guy, because he matters.
Revolver Ocelot!
Where to go after Delta? This big question that will remain after new players have finished Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is, what do I play next? Assuming you've enjoyed your time in the MGS3 remake, there are multiple directions you could go. You can continue the chronological path and move straight onto Metal Gear Solid 5. It's true that Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker is in between these games, but it's not overly accessible for players who aren't on Xbox. With its gameplay being very similar to MGS3, you could just watch a YouTube video to fill in the story blanks. If you did enjoy your time, our personal recommendation is to get your hands on the Master Collection and make your way through MGS1 and MGS2. With recent leaks suggesting Volume 2 of the Master Collection will contain MGS4, there is no better time to get cooking on this series. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.